Greetings and welcome to the Art Schools Network's No More Webinars series. We're so glad you could take time out of your very busy schedule at the end of this school year to join us for 30 minutes to learn about SNAAP, everything you always wanted to know but were afraid to ask. Who are we? Art Schools Network is committed to its mission, which is to promote excellence in arts education by supporting and recognizing students, leaders, educators, schools, institutions, and organizations. We want to be the go-to organization for best practice models. We serve the leaders, and our goal is to support them in 4 core areas, including best practices, college and career pathways, elementary and middle school arts, and leadership. We provided services as a nonprofit professional organization for over 30 years. We are so glad you're here with us today, and we hope you're also going to come and join us, in sorry about that, guys, New York City, our annual conference this year, October 22nd through 25th. We want you to connect, explore, and be inspired by one of the most thriving creative cities in the nation, New York. Go to our website and you'll see the schedule in detail and all the schools we're visiting. Now I have the great pleasure to actually launch us into the webinar today, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About SNAAP, But Were Afraid to Ask, presented by the Strategic National Arts Alumni Project staff. This is an annual online survey of graduates of arts high schools and college programs, and you're going to learn today the basics of how it works, the questions they ask, pricing, the data you get, and how institutions are using their data to make real change. Hopefully, you've got lots of people sitting in the room around the computer screen with you, principals, deans, department chairs, counselors, maybe even parents or alum themselves. Our featured speakers are Sally Gaskell, Rebecca Hooten, Angie Miller, and each one of them has impressive credentials. If you were enticed by the e-blast we sent out, then you'll know all of those. I don't want to take much more time away from them. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Sally Gaskell, the arts administrator who is the director of the SNAAP project, and she can take it from there. Sally.
Hey, thanks, Christy. It's such a thrill and a privilege to be a part of this very impressive series of webinars that the Art School Network is doing. So I'm pleased to, if you want to go to the next slide, Christy, and back up one.
Oops.
There. Okay, so this is just our title slide. We hope that for those of you who might be of a certain age, like myself, that you got a kick out of our title. If you don't get the cultural reference to our title, just YouTube it on your way home today. Not on your way home, but after the webinar is over, and hopefully you'll get a chuckle out of it. It's a tongue-in-cheek reference to an old Woody Allen movie that I remember from my youth. So, next slide. We do hope, by the way, that you will ask a lot of questions as we go through this material really quickly this afternoon, and be sure to type in any questions that you might have. So a brief outline of what we're going to do is an introduction to SNAAP, a description of the reports that you will get if you participate in the project, and then how it works, what happens when you sign up to participate in SNAAP. Next slide. And the next slide. So the mission of SNAAP was developed by our National Advisory Board several years ago. And basically, we investigate the educational experiences as well as the career paths of people who have arts degrees from institutions in the United States and Canada, both from arts high schools as well as from post-secondary institutions. We provide those findings, the data that we receive, back to the educators, to policymakers, and also to philanthropic organizations to be able to learn more about the lives and careers of people with arts degrees. And we hope that in return that you, the educators of the country, will improve arts training, and that we will also be able to inform cultural policy and support artists through the dissemination of the data. Next slide. We're based here at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. We also participate very closely with the Curb Center for Art Enterprise and Public Policy at Vanderbilt. And if you look at the two institutions, here at Indiana University, we primarily work on the actual survey operations and staff the project on a day-to-day basis. At the Curb Center at Vanderbilt, under the direction of Stephen Tepper, who's Associate Director there and also a leading sociologist in the country who works on arts policy and the cultural economy. They lead up the research operations for the project. So here at IU, with our research analysts, we collect and analyze and give back to you the data of your alumni, and at the Curb Center, we help them work with the national aggregate data to make publications and produce reports that are informative about the experiences and the lives of arts graduates nationally. We are a project of Indiana University and Vanderbilt University, and we're advised by a really wonderful group of board members from institutions across the country, and I invite you to look at our website and see who they are. Next slide. So we survey, as I mentioned earlier, individuals who have a degree in the arts, and we define the arts really quite broadly. The arts include, of course, all the visual arts and design, architecture, all the performing arts, music, theater, and dance, creative writing, even communication arts. We work closely with all types of institutions from across the country, independent art colleges, schools of art and design, conservatories, arts high schools, art schools and departments within larger comprehensive colleges and universities, liberal arts colleges, as well as large research universities. And over the last 2 years, we've made a change in our policy, which is that instead of surveying just a sample of your alumni, we've started surveying all living arts alumni from each of your institutions. So if your school happened to participate in one of our field tests the first 3 years, only selected graduation cohort years were surveyed then, whereas now we're surveying all of your alumni so that you get a really robust set of numbers in your reports. Next slide. Next slide, please. Hello, Christy. Next slide, please. So I will wait for Christy to give us the next slide. And the next slide, when we get there, talks about increasing numbers. We have had, in the last year, in 2011 when we did our survey, 36,000 respondents from 66 institutions. And this past year, in 2012, 33,000 arts alumni responded from 70 institutions. And what we're able to do now is to combine the databases from each of our participating years and create really robust sets of national data. We also combine the data for those of you who are interested in participating and in looking at comparison of data as well. So, Christy, I'm still hoping that
Which slide did you want to be on?
Slide could be advanced. Okay, so at this point we should be through participating institutions receive. So if you could go to the next slide.
Let's see. I'm not sure why
it's not moving. Okay, now it's gone a little bit too far, but I can definitely work with that.
No. That's my apology. Let me go back for you. I apologize.
Okay, just one back. Okay. Okay, participating institutions receive. There we go. So you receive a very detailed institutional report, which Angie's going to lay out in a moment. Also a complete data file of your responses, which means that you have an identifiable data set. You can actually go back and identify the respondents for each one of the questions to every single survey. We also are very happy to provide free workshops and webinars once you get your data to help you use them. Next slide. Okay, so the questionnaire is comprised of 7 different sections, and you can see here on the screen the different kinds of sections that we ask. Not everyone gets every question. For example, if you're currently working in the arts, then you'll receive more questions about your career than if you've already indicated that you're working in a different occupation outside of the arts. It can take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to maybe 30 to 35 minutes to complete the survey. Many people do it in more than one chunk of time. One of my favorite stories from survey administration a couple of years ago was from a graduate in film from one of the participating institutions, and he told us that he had a very good time very good time. He really appreciated being asked to complete the survey, and he was very happy to be able to do it on a film set that he was currently working on. And every time that they would have a break, he'd go back to his cell phone and work some more on the survey. So we have adapted to the second decade of the 21st century, and in fact your alumni can take the survey on their laptops, on their mainframes, on their cell phone, on their tablet, you name it. So next slide. I'm happy to turn things over to Angie Miller.
Yes, thank you, Sally. As Sally mentioned, I'm going to just spend a little bit of time talking about the institutional reports and going through the different sections that you would receive if you were a participating institution. So next slide. So this is just the table of contents here to give you an idea of there are multiple sections and even sections within sections. The first section just we provide to give you sort of a context about interpreting your results and just general overall information about SNAAP. And then you'll see that the second section and the third section, if applicable, those are the sections that actually have your institution's individual responses customized just for your institution. So, and of course, if you were participating as a high school institution, you would have a section 2 that was high school alumni. We break out by the 3 different levels. So next slide. So this is what we call the data highlights, and this is just a short report that we put in sort of before all the more extensive information, and it features selected responses. As Sally mentioned, the survey is very comprehensive and there's all those different sections and it can take people a while to do, so rather than give you right up front every single response to every single question, we selected some that we think that your institutions would find useful. We put them in sort of this visually pleasing form, so things are in bullet points and tables, sort of to serve as an executive summary, something that you could pass around to multiple stakeholders. Next slide. So this is something new for this year. It's another short report that we've put into sort of a visual display of formatting the data. And this is what we call the Recent Graduates Report. It's something that we developed in response to institutional users' requests for this information. And it is looking at people who have graduated within the last 5 years, or for high schools the last 10 years, because we know that many high school alumni go right into post-secondary institutions. So we widen the time frame a little bit for them. But this is something that looks just at those recent graduates, because we know that when you're trying to make changes in terms of your curriculum and programming, the people who have most recently graduated are going to be the ones who can give you a better idea, because they have all had the most recent curriculum. So this is something, and again, we tried to put it, we selected certain questions to feature, and we put it into a more visually pleasing display, so it's something that you could share with lots and lots of different people. So next slide. So this is what we call the comparison group report, and this is one of the most compelling features of participating in SNAAP. Is not only do you have your own, you can launch your own alumni survey if you choose, but this would cost you a lot of money, and SNAAP allows you to get information from peer institutions, so you can compare yourself against institutions that are also participating in SNAAP that you feel are similar to you. And you get to customize this if you choose. So if you're an arts high school and you are a public school in an urban setting, you can select other schools that are similar to you that are also public schools in urban settings, and we can combine their information into a group, and you can compare yourself against those. We have lots of different options for groups that you can select who are similar to yourself, either in the discipline or within a Carnegie classification for post-secondary schools, or even within a geographic region. We really leave a lot of that up to you in terms of what comparisons you think are going to make the most sense. And then we give you a report that lists all of those institutions that you've selected. And as Sally mentioned, we can combine from the past few years to give you more ability to customize.
It looks like, this is Christy, thank you. It looks like you can drill down by school or by art form, so that's fascinating.
Yes, and even if you don't have schools that you have in mind that you want to customize, we have default groups that we would assign schools that we feel are the most similar to you in terms of arts discipline or geographic region, those are the two default groups that we come with. So we really try to help you, guide you in what institutions you would select. So then once you select these comparison groups, you can go to the next slide. You can see that we give you a respondent characteristics report, and this is, so you've selected your comparison groups, and we give you all this information side by side. So your institution's responses would be in the highlighted column, and then you've got the groups that you've selected next to you. And the respondent characteristics page, before we start giving you survey responses, we give you this so you can see, get some information about your response rate, and also some demographic information, so what ages, what gender, marital status, those sorts of things, just to give you an idea of exactly who is in not only your respondent group, but also the comparison groups. Next slide. And then this is just a small section of what we call the frequency report. And this includes the numbers of respondents as well as the percentages. And you can see it's laid out similar to the previous one, where you have your institution's responses and then you have them side by side with your comparison groups. And this report gives you the responses of every single fixed response question in the survey. So it's pretty long, but you do get to see every single response from all of your respondents and your comparison groups respondents.
And on the far right, the SNAAP institutions, is that your total sum?
Yes, that's everyone at that particular level who isn't you.
Okay.
So that's everybody else combined, so you can get an idea of all of the people who have participated in SNAAP. And then next slide. And then we also have what's called the Alumni Comments Report, and we have lots of open-ended questions in this survey. There are 10 total, because we found that our artists sometimes they don't like the fixed response options. They want to tell you more. They want to explain more. They want to give it to you more in a narrative and more of a story. So we have lots of these open-ended questions that are incorporated throughout the survey, and we give you every single response to these, and we don't edit them in any way. We also give you a little bit of context, so we tell you what year they graduated and whether they worked as an artist or an arts teacher or an arts administrator, just to sort of frame their question. And you can see we display it here underneath what the actual question was. And some of our institutions who they don't have the really high respondent numbers, for whatever reason they have a hard time getting contact information, things like that, they have found that these comments are really valuable, because even if they don't have a lot of respondents, they still can look at the comments reports and they can find themes, and they can really use evidence from the comment section to do lots of different things at their institutions. So those are the basic sections of the report, and now I'm going to turn it over to Becca to talk more about the logistics of participating in SNAAP.
Thanks, Angie. So how does SNAAP work? As Angie mentioned, I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the logistics of participation, from registration through administration of the survey and also delivery of your reports. So on this slide, you can see the first and most important date to keep in mind is our registration deadline, which is Monday, July 15th. And the registration is a simple process on our website. You can go to snaap.indiana.edu, and then there will be a link to the registration site. And so the bottom half of this slide is a screenshot of what you'll encounter when you click to begin registration. And so once you go ahead and enter the registration process, you'll select your state, your institution. You'll let us know which programs, departments, schools will be participating within your institution, if not your entire institution. And then when you register, you'll need to designate your SNAAP Campus Project Manager, or CPM. The CPM is the point person for SNAAP at your campus, so this is the person with whom we'll have the most frequent contact. You'll also let us know who will serve as your chief academic contact. It will usually be a dean or a provost or vice provost. Next slide, please. So this is a screenshot of the login page for our SNAAP interface. So once your registration is approved, you'll gain access to this secure online interface, and it's where we'll exchange very important information. It's where you'll upload your alumni file with all your alumni file contact information. There will be contact message templates for you to customize. I'll go into greater detail about that in a minute. And then you'll also log into the interface to download your reports and data files when they become available in the spring of 2014. Next slide. So because SNAAP is administered via email, it's really important that we have as many valid email addresses as possible for your living alumni. We'll also ask you for other information for your alumni, such as name, postal address, degree earned, degree level, and major. Once you've gathered this information, you'll upload it, again, as I mentioned, on the interface, and that'll happen sometime in mid-August, mid to late August. And then we take the information that you provide us, and we partner with an alumni search firm called Harris Connect, and they actually go ahead and validate the email addresses, and they actually also improve those emails, so they'll find updated emails for your alumni. In the past, we've seen about a 15% match rate on that. So once Harris Connect provides us with the updated information, we actually provide that back to you in an improved alumni file, which you can download from the interface. Actually, it's live throughout the survey process, so you constantly have updated information. So that's one of the nice added benefits of participating in SNAAP. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, you'll have customizable contact messages. And the messages look like they're coming from your institution. You'll have a chance to upload your logo, so we brand the messages with your logo, and you can also edit the paragraph somewhat, add a sentence here or there to make it like it's coming from you. And you can decide who the signatories will be on that, whether it's a dean, a department chair, principal, whomever you think is the most appropriate contact. And also, we are governed by the Institutional Review Board here at Indiana University. And so per their regulations, we're only allowed to send up to 5 contact messages. So there's an initial invitation and then 4 subsequent reminders. But actually, once an alum responds to the survey, they're no longer contacted. Next slide, please. And just to give you an example of what the questionnaire looks like online, this is just one screenshot from one of the questions here. And you'll notice we created a sample logo for a generic school of the arts. That's on the right-hand side, but your school logo would be there. And you can find a full version of the questionnaire with screenshots of each page on our website. Next slide, please. And here are our tentative dates for SNAAP 2013 for the launch of the survey. We're hoping to launch around October 8th. And then we stay open until pretty much just before Thanksgiving, so around November 20th. And then our analysts get right to work on analyzing your data and putting together the reports. And usually those are delivered sometime in late spring, so March or April, and sometimes early May. Next slide. And here is a page out of our invitation to participate that gives you an overview of what it costs to participate in SNAAP. It's a sliding scale, so the amount that you pay is based on the number of living alumni that you have in your population file. So the top half here are the fees for post-secondary institutions, colleges, and universities. So for if you have fewer than 1,000 alumni in your program, the fee is $3,000. 1,000 to 2,499 alumni, it's $4,000, and so forth. You can see how it progressively gets more higher costs for more alumni. There's also a $300 non-refundable registration fee, and for high schools, the cost is a little bit lower. Next slide, please. So why SNAAP? Why now? Well, You need good data to plan, to recruit students, to meet accreditation requirements, and to make changes in your curriculum. SNAAP provides you with really great data, and we think we make it fairly easy for you. It's also easy to claim that arts education is a good investment for your student, but it's quite another to be able to empirically demonstrate that. So SNAAP data gives you the tools that you need. And lastly, you could do a survey on your own, but in most cases cost you more. And you won't have that comparative data that Angie went through in the institution slides. So I'm going to pass it back to Sally now to close up and give you some final thoughts.
Okay, so we could do a whole nother webinar, and actually, Christy, we would be delighted to do so on just using your SNAAP data. Once you participated in SNAAP, then what do you do with all of that data that we give back to you? We give you guidelines on how to approach your data. We also give you lots of examples of what schools that have already participated in SNAAP are doing. So you can see here on the slide the kinds of things that institutions are using their data for. And if you check back to our website in a day or two, we're updating our website, and there'll be a whole new section on using your SNAAP data, and welcome you to peruse that. And you'll see a lot of the examples that we would give on what you can do. You know, some people, just in closing, some people think that SNAAP is expensive. It is in relation to not doing SNAAP. But I'll give you an anecdote in closing. I know an arts dean for a college, let's say, in the upper Midwest. So this dean said to me several years ago when I saw her at a conference that she'd love to do SNAAP but just could not afford to. So the next time I saw her, she told me that she'd just seen one of the college trustees at the airport, and he'd said to her, "How do you justify graduating people with arts degrees in this economy, and what do your people go on to do in life?" And so I told her, so she did not really have an answer to those questions. So I told her if you'd had SNAAP data, you would be able to answer. And sure enough, the next year she found the funds and participated in SNAAP. So going on, Christy, to the next slide. We hope that this has been a useful, brief overview of SNAAP, who we are and what we do and how it works. This is a classic image of a Richard Archwager piece, which I love to use at the ends of presentations. And Christy, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the questions are around, people want to know actually that last slide that said how are people using their data, and there's questions about could you give us an example specifically. Are you allowed to share, or should we go to your website? How can we learn more on our own? And of course we'll offer another webinar.
Sure. Oh, that'd be great. Yes, we do have examples on the website. As I mentioned, are changing the site, so in a day or two it will be much easier to find. There'll be a tab right at the top that says using your data. But in the meantime, if you'd like to email us at SNAAP, S-N-A-A-P, at indiana.edu, we would be happy to direct you to other presentations that show you how institutions are already using their data. The very first thing that we suggest that people do is to simply share their data on their own campus. But there's lots and lots of other things after that. So I guess I would say that because our time is short, stay tuned for the next webinar.
That's fantastic. Thank you so very much, Sally Gaskell and Rebecca Houghton and Angie Miller. We're so grateful for you guys to lend your expertise in just 30 minutes. I know normally this is a much longer session for you all because you have so much to cover, and I was lucky enough to go to the 3 Million Stories culminating conference you held just this spring at Vanderbilt to share some of these results and to bring thinkers together. And I think we should encourage drive people to that website where all those resources are too. So in our follow-up, thank you to these registrants and participants today for giving us some of your busy school year time. We'll make sure you have links to the things we mentioned, and we'll invite you back to the follow-up for the SNAAP presentation. So thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you. And Christy, don't forget to move on.
Very good. So here at Art Schools Network, when you support our programs, you strengthen our efforts, and you reach an active, influential, and growing audience of hundreds of art schools, nearly half of which are high schools, and the other are colleges, and your message reaches hundreds of arts leaders, thousands of arts teachers, and hundreds of thousands of art students, our future. We're a vital resource for arts educators and institutions, and we're helping them share knowledge and ideas through communications conferences and innovative programs such as No More Webinars. If you feel that you have a webinar that you think your peer group would be interested in, please contact me, Christy Calloway, the Executive Director, and I'd be happy to discuss that opportunity with you. We want to thank you for joining us today. Again, we want to thank Sally, Angie, and Becca. And we hope you all have a wonderful remainder of your week, and good luck with the closing and rebirth of your schools. Have a nice evening.